Okay, energy, we talked about what energy is not and what energy is. It is what it is, okay? So conceptually, it goes a long ways to think of energy. Review, what is energy? If I ask you what is energy, I believe that the strongest definition is the ability to cause change of any sort, right? You got that. All right, so we take a look at things. There's electrical energy. And we'll study electrical properties in a later course. I push that, wow, this has electrical energy. Somehow it made light. Light, not energy, but does have energy. Momentum, various properties. And we've got that. So we know that this has the potential to give energy of motion through the light bulb. The light bulb has the potential to warm up and create light. So we're going to think in terms of energy, and then we'll mathematically just try to keep track of it, right? All right, so we've got, what other kinds of energy do we have? Let's say we've got spring energy. And if I do spring energy, I can turn that energy into motion, clearly. So spring energy goes to motion energy. I've got gravitational potential energy, which can go into motion energy. Then it hits, and where does the energy go? Jiggling energy. The jiggling of the atoms, thermal energy. The jiggling of the air, sound. More sound. Sometimes things hit, and they break your favorite cup. So you turn it into a positive. Turn your negatives into a positive. All right, well, I could glue it, but I didn't want to, really. So these objects are held together by atomic molecular bonds, right? Bonds, and that's ultimately electrical. Don't overthink it. Just think it on this surface. And when I break those bonds, that takes energy. So likely, I had energy of motion. In fact, I know when I did this, I had energy of motion, which hit it. I gave it energy of motion. It fell off the desk, so I had gravitational potential energy, which went into energy of motion. Then it hit, and that energy of motion broke those atomic bonds, bonds, and energy going from place to place, lots of places. So we really need to keep track of this. It's a really powerful tool. Behind the scenes, keep in mind, it's just another way of talking about kinematics and forces, interactions. What is an atomic bond but an interaction, electrical interaction between things, right? So interactions, force and kinematics, but energy we're going to see is just a really nice way of dealing with it. Particularly, I mean, how are you going to talk about all the atoms here? I mean, you're going to count them all up? You're going to do a free body diagram on all these atoms? I don't think so, right? So the beauty of energy is when things get very complex, when there's too many forces to keep track of, too many things, we can keep track of this quantity called energy, and we can use that quantity as our way of measuring change, predicting change, explaining change, and so on, and designing change. So that's what energy is, right? Nothing more, nothing less. Often when people say, I like your energy, it's their personality, right? So, and this guy's got personality. So. Okay, so that's energy. Now watch this. What kind of energy do I have? Now I've got elastic, because I've stretched it. So at the atomic level, I've created a stretch, and that I have potential energy. It's potential for motion. So if you just think in terms of keeping track, forget about the numbers and the math right now. There's elastic potential energy, which when I release, when I release, it goes into the kinetic energy. The kinetic energy it slows down as it goes up, old news, right? Now I've got less kinetic energy, more potential energy of gravity. More gravitational potential energy, less gravitational potential energy, more kinetic energy. then I get jiggling. So I lose it all to jiggling. Ultimately, you'll see with entropy and second law of thermodynamics that jiggling is going to take it all away, this random motion. Ultimately, it's still kinetic energy, isn't it? And if things are attached, like a spring, there's still potential energy on that scale. So we're still thinking in terms of that. That goes a long ways to figuring out what we're doing. Then we got to put in our mathematics, put in some calculus and algebra and things like that, and really define things carefully. Because if you want to keep track of your energy, then you've got to do that. You know, there's all kinds of cool things, whether you work on astronomical level things of stars exploding into this white dwarf planetary nebula kind of thing, or just systems like this, energy is great. Color, does color have energy? Well, that's an interesting thing. Light has energy, but it isn't energy. Light can create the experience, which we call color. Different colors. So if I go over here, talk about light just for a second. I said there was, light has energy. And so you can create energy. Got light. Right? In fact, here's a chart of light. And we could measure something. Usually what we do is we send it through some slits and the light fans out. And what we actually measure is how far out the colors are from the center. So we're really measuring this, and yet somehow that translates into equations which we can calculate, and we can look at something about the light, and that gives us something about the energy of the light. Right? So we do these different measurements. Light has energy, there's energy, it takes energy. Now what am I doing here? Notice this, just think in terms of this, walk around, you know, drive yourself a little crazy. Electric energy is going into light energy, right? And that's blasting out my eyes, so it's hitting my eyes, so I can block some of it because it's too much energy. Now, there I blocked some of that. Now some of the energy goes here. What happens? Jiggling. Lots of jiggling, right? Jiggling on the atomic scale, air, things like that, vibration. So energy isn't a thing, but it's a property, and it's a good way to keep track of what's going on. A lot better than force analysis when you got so much going on. And yet, behind the scenes, fundamentally, we're still talking about the same thing. One more little bit. Does this have the ability to hurt me? The ability to cause change? Well, when I say ability, that's a little, of course I could do something with it. I mean, this could be lifted over my head and then I worry about it. It could be thrown at me and then I worry about it. So each of these could be used in that way, but right now the scissors aren't going to be dropped over my head. Right now the scissors aren't cutting me. If they're moving towards me, they might puncture me or slice me or whatever. This might fall on my head. But right now I talk about it having energy. Not as a thing, but having something that gives it the ability to change. Having mass, having motion, having a height relative to my head or my toe. Having a stretch or a compression, something that's ready to pop up or explode. Having something electrically stored, right? Something electrically stored to get me through the day, right? So having energy is really having something else, isn't it? It's having motion, or it's having interaction. Something, interaction, force. Having interaction. Interactions cause change. Interactions cause change, right? Because even velocity is relative. Again, you don't worry about the person you're sitting next to on a plane. You're going, oh my God, you're traveling so fast, you're going to hurt me. No, they're relative to you, they're not moving, right? So you go up to the top of the Empire State Building and you don't take this and go, wow, this could really kill me. You know, no, because you're at the top too. You drop it over the head, you know, that would be horrific. So energy, it changes, and we're going to talk about that next. Changing form, playing the game of accounting for energy. I have got electrical energy in the battery. I take my electrical, basically, energy in my body, right, from breakfast or whatever. I create motion out of that, so that takes energy to move. I squeeze, I take that electrical energy, somehow I create that electric circuit, and it makes the light go off, and it makes sound. And so how do I keep track of it? Knowing behind the scenes, energy is not light, energy is not an entity, energy is a property which we measure, and it's an easier thing to do bookkeeping for than keeping track of all the forces between all the atoms and so on. So. All right, cool. Let's start doing energy accounting next time.